We continue on the MSG 150 final and say hello to former Giants wide receiver Amani Toomer. Also helps us out on our Giants coverage here on MSG. Amani, great to see you. Thanks for dropping by.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right, so you played with Eli Manning.
Yeah.
We may or may not have seen the last of him in terms of playing football for the Giants. What was your reaction to what you saw on Sunday?
I was just happy to see him go out with some dignity. I thought the way that the Giants benched him early, I didn't really agree with that whole situation. And it really kind of opens the door up to what the season could have possibly been. Would they have not lost 10 games in a row? Could it only been 4 or 5? Could the season have been salvageable right now with the way of the NFC East? And I really feel sorry for a lot of the guys in the locker room who basically had to sit back and watch Daniel Jones develop and their season, their opportunity to be in the NFL. Some of them may not be in the league next year, and their only experience or their little limited experience has been kind of hampered. They didn't have a chance to really compete because they were with a quarterback a rookie quarterback. With Eli, they might have been able to make some noise this season.
Interesting tape, because it's a tough call for the organization about when to develop the youngster.
Yeah, I remember when Eli came in, I had the same situation where, we had Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner had won us a couple games. We were 4-5. We were on pace to get to the playoffs. They pulled the plug on Kurt Warner, and all of a sudden, we lost 8 games in a row out of the playoffs, and the whole coaching staff got fired. So it was a dramatic thing that, ultimately it ended up being good for us because Eli ended up being good the next year. But for those people on that team, it was heartbreaking.
Is there a closure now with this? Because, it was always, when do you move on from it? It's always the hardest thing to do with any star player. We saw the Yankees do it with Derek Jeter as well. Is there a closure now and they can move on from Eli? Or can you see Eli staying with the organization in a mentor role, for Daniel Jones? It seems like he'd be a perfect fit for that if he still wants to play. Why go somewhere else?
$20 million a year.
You're
not going to pay $20 million.
That'd do it. That would do it if that was reality. But what is he, 38? I mean,
that's a lot of money.
It's true.
That's a lot of cap
space. Give it to him.
I mean, I think that would be great, in terms of helping Daniel Jones along in his progress. But the reality, the business of it is it's impossible. And I think if Eli wants to move on like his brother from Indianapolis and go on to Denver, I think it'd be a perfect situation for Eli to move on and go someplace else where people in Indianapolis didn't hate Peyton Manning's move. And I don't think people in New York are going to hate if Eli goes somewhere and plays next year.
Now, we're talking about the NFC East, which I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, admittedly. And now they're the NFC least right now. But there's a huge game coming up this weekend for the NFC East division lead. Yeah. How do you feel about that game this weekend? Who do you think is going to win?
I think Dallas is going to win. I think they're a better team than the Eagles. I just feel that the Dallas Cowboys can beat up on teams that aren't very good, and I don't think the Eagles are very good.
They didn't beat up on the Jets.
Well, every once in a while. I mean, every once in a while, a squirrel finds a nut. You know what I mean? You never know. But yeah, I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to take the division.
All right. Good.
Well, I mean, that division's been a pillow fight, but you still have rivalry, right? You still have rivalries. Now, I want to know what you think of this as a former player. Because a lot of Giants fans that I know are saying, okay, you got the Eli thing was nice. You get the win, you send off, all that's great. But even though you're playing the Redskins and it's a rivalry game and all that stuff for this division, there are a lot of Giants fans that say, we can't win now because you're that close to Chase Young. You're that close to an edge rusher, the number 2 pick in the draft. And so the feeling is it's a strange place to be as a fan, that you feel like it's better if the team doesn't win, and yet it's a division rival. So your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm coming from the player's perspective, and people in the locker room do not care about who's going to be drafted next year. They care about looking good now to finish out this season, so that when they're looking at because at the end of the year they're going to decode the whole season, kind of figure out what went wrong. You don't want to be one of the guys that are like, yeah, he gave up. Oh yeah, he gave up. He's got to go. Everybody's job security mode right now. They want to play as hard and make the decisions as hard as possible to keep them around, because everybody at the end of the day wants to have a job in the NFL.
And plus, you don't want them to draft the guy that replaces you.
Exactly.
It's really interesting, your perspective, because as a player, you care about today, and the organization often plans for tomorrow.
Absolutely, because there's no promise of tomorrow for a player. So we have to deal with what's in front of us immediately and can't worry about the draft. And I mean, Chase Young is great, but, what about Vernon Golston? He was out of Ohio State. He was a can't-miss guy, and he was a
Why would you?
Jet.
Why would you do that?
So,
Speaking of the draft, what are the Giants' draft needs for this upcoming draft?
I mean,
just go over the top three needs.
Top three
needs.
I think they definitely need to get better on the defensive line, so that's why Chase Young is a thing. I think linebacker needs to be addressed. Corner needs to be addressed. I think a lot of the defensive areas need to be addressed. For once in a long time, I don't think they need to address the offensive line, because I think the offensive line is suitable.
Okay.
I mean, it's not as bad as it has been in the past. They have skill positions. Of course,
there's a ton of skill on offense.
Yeah, all they need is to really get this defensive line and get that pushback that we're used to seeing as Giant fans from the offensive line. I mean, the defensive line pushing the offensive line and allowing people to scrape over the top.
All right, so you're a Michigan man.
Oh, yes.
And when a guy's a Michigan man, he always lets you know it. Jim Harbaugh, his team is going to take on Alabama in the Citrus Bowl. Where would you see Harbaugh at this point? Where do you assess where he's been to this 5 years in? And they really haven't beaten Ohio State, lost a lot of rivalry games. What do you think about the state of Michigan football?
I am not happy with the state of Michigan football for one reason only, is they have not even really competed consistently against Ohio State. They have to beat Ohio State, and they haven't done it. They haven't even looked good in maybe one game when they lost by a 2-point conversion. What was that, 2 years ago? Other than that, they've been blowouts, and this year was embarrassing. And it was to the point where I started calling my former teammates. I'm like, hey, man, what is going on? Revolution. I mean, it's to the point now where it's not even, I mean, we haven't won in 10 years.
Right, never
I'm
mind.
very upset.
Never mind playing for a championship. You can't even beat Ohio State, which is almost, I mean, that's your championship. You start there. Hey, the Jordan brand gear, though, is sweet. At least you have that.
I don't even care. I don't care at all. I just want to beat Ohio State. I don't care about the Jordan brand. I don't care about his khakis. I don't care about his quirkiness. I don't care about anything. I care about the fact that we cannot even compete against Ohio State, and we lost for 10 years. It's calm down.
Digress.
Find your happy spot.
Woosah.
Amani, thanks so much for dropping by.
Awesome.
Have a great holiday season.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.